Let alone a while that the whole world runs on oil. Like that's
これからサミットダイアローグの3回目が始まります。
Delegates and fellow students, welcome to the third Summit Dialogue of the 2014 Hwa Chong Asia Pacific Young Leaders Summit. I'm John Wei, and I'll be your MC for the day. This afternoon, we are very honored to have with us Mr. Warren Fernandez. Mr. Warren Fernandez is the editor of the Straits Times, Singapore's largest selling daily newspaper. He has served on various national committees, including the Course Review Committee, the Remaking Singapore Committee, Singapore 21, and Compass.
This is the third or fourth time I'm doing this, and I was told by some of the people who had attended previous ones that I had been provocative in the past, so I shall try to be as provocative as I was, I hope. I do this every year when I'm asked to. As was mentioned, I'm an old boy of the school, so when I get a call from the principal saying, please come and help us, I find it incredibly hard to say no, so that's why I'm here. My opening remarks are largely to do with what I do day in and day out, and that is the news. And I would like to engage you on the question of why should you read the news? Why is it relevant or even useful for you to do so? And I'd suggest three reasons for that, and I'd like to give you three examples just to put it in some context. Some people say to me, the news is boring, the news is irrelevant, the news has nothing to do with me. But I would like to say that the news is about you, because the news is really about what's happening in the world and how it's going to affect you in one way or the other, sooner or later. The news is also about what people around you are interested in. And if you are going to be interesting to people, you have to know what other people are interested in. Perhaps the more important reason is because knowing what's going on around you will help you form your own views about what you like about what's going on around you and what you dislike. What is it you like to keep? What is it you like to change? And how you're going to go about effecting that change. And that's the topic of our session today, right? Igniting change, inspiring hope. And unless you know what's going on around you, you're not going to be able to make that change in a positive way. This is a question I get all the time. You know, when I take groups of people to visit the newsroom and I show them, you know, the news desk and the foreign desk and the sports desk, many people will ask me, so where does the censor sit? So I'd look around the room, I'd look at the table, and the reality is the way the news flows these days, there is no possibility for any government bureaucrat to censor the news in the way they used to do it. But I was not apologetic in my newsroom or outside my newsroom for not running it, because my explanation to my colleagues was, we can run a story like that today, but if it's not backed up and if people see that you're stringing facts to come to the conclusion, you're not letting the facts get in the way of a good story, basically, you damage your reputation for credibility. And if you're proven wrong over time, that credibility gets destroyed, and ultimately people stop believing you. So I feel we took the right decision. The difference between a newspaper and an online site is that there are many levels of checks in a newsroom before something goes to print. At least for the professional newsrooms that I'm referring to. So a reporter comes back to the newsroom with a story or a tip-off. He doesn't just sit down and write the story and then boom, it goes up online or goes into print. He first has to debrief an editor, and the editor will ask him, so where did you hear this? Who's telling you this? Have you got more sources? Is this source reliable? So he goes through that level of check. If he convinces the editor that it's worth doing, he might start writing the story. If he doesn't, he's told, go find out more and come back before you offer the story. Once he's written the story, someone else looks at it and says, is this story sound? Are there gaps in information? Are there, you're almost poking holes in the story. So that supervisor or that copy editor works on it. And then there may be 2 or 3 levels down the line who will also look at the story, his boss's boss, and ultimately me. I will look at it and say, okay, is this story sound? Is it good to go? Do I sign off on it? So it's that multiple levels of checking that makes news content on a respected, reputable news site different from what you might see from a blogger or someone who's just putting stuff up without the need to verify. So sometimes they may be faster, but they're not always more accurate. And that puts a dilemma on us because we want to be fast, but we also want to be accurate. And between the two, I'd rather be accurate than fast.
You have hundreds of different ideas that you're viewing all at the same time. So this is just my question, my proposition. I want to see what you have to think about this. Thank you.
You're right, Everett. There is a risk that the media becomes sort of, I wouldn't say self-serving, but restricted in its view and seeking to put out a particular view. I read one story in an American newspaper some years ago which said, yesterday was an unusual day for Bill Clinton. He did something right. I thought, that's news? That sounds more like opinion, A big risk of polarization, especially in a society like Singapore, which is so disparate. Different races, different religions, different value systems. And that's something that, as a journalist, we are very conscious of. And when one of the big challenges for any newspaper editor in Singapore is staying connected to the community. And not just the community online, but real people out in the streets.
I want to ask you a question about information. Nowadays, there are many informations around the world. I think the important thing we have to do is to tell the correct information from other wrong information. Then my question is, how can we do that? Thank you.
How can we do that? That's a big question. I mean, it goes back to biblical times, right? I mean, when I'm reminded of when Pontius Pilate asked Jesus Christ, truth, what is that? What is truth? What is objective truth? It depends on the speaker, it depends on the context, it depends on the interpretation you put to it. So there is no one black and white objective truth in many circumstances. We have to try to be as objective as we can, and I think the best antidote to that is to give as many sides of an argument as you possibly can. And for the reader, the best answer to it is to read as much as you can. Different opinions, different viewpoints.
Do you feel it's ever necessary to stretch the truth in order to spark change or gain momentum for a worthy cause? It's by Justin from the USA.
I would say emphatically no, because you will be found out every time. And you may gain a slight advantage momentarily, but it will out. So I would advise against it.
Right, so for the next question, can you have Miko?
Hello, I'm Miko from Japan. I want to, 2 days ago we went to MediaCorp, and there I learned that MediaCorp is the only one in Singapore who provides the TV news for free. And I think that nowadays TV shows, TV news have a big influence on people. So I think that in Singapore, I hope I don't offensive, but I think it lacks diversity, I think. So what do you think about it?
Yes, MediaCorp is our competitor, so I often say naughty things just to provoke them. We used to have a TV station in my company, which was called Straits Times TV. And every night we used to put out a nightly news bulletin in competition to MediaCorp. and we used to have 2 entertainment channels as well. But unfortunately, it lost so much money because it's so expensive to produce television programs that it just was not viable. So we shut it down and ceded the ground to MediaCorp, which is most unfortunate. But these days, I think even if you came up to me and offered me a license to run a TV station, I wouldn't do it. Because the competition is no longer about Singapore Press Holdings versus MediaCorp. It's really about MediaCorp versus Apple TV versus online on demand.
He looks like Mr. Bill.
I'm sorry, he's gonna lie down. I'm sure he's gonna lie down.
Thanks, girl.
You're free tomorrow evening, 7:30 on Saturday. Come watch it. Very funny.
Sorry, Mr. Rick.
No problem. Absolutely no problem.
7:30. So on Friday night.
Please proceed.
정리해줘.